You can never have too many sweaters. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of the Northward Knitter. My name is Heather. I'm coming at you from Whitehorse in the Yukon in northwestern Canada. If you're not sure where that is, it's north of British Columbia and east of Alaska. It's been a little while since my last video. Work and life has just gotten crazy, and this year has gone by so fast. In my last video, which was all the way back in February, I had just gotten back from Idaho and was heading out to Northwest Territories for work. If you didn't know, I am a geophysicist in mineral exploration, so that means I am away for weeks at a time for work, usually in some remote area of North America. This year has been crazy. I have kind of been all over, but now I'm back for a little bit and I wanted to film a video for you guys. I haven't got as much knitting done as I wanted to in that time, but I do have a little bit to show you guys. I have some finished objects, I have some works in progress. So grab your beverage of choice and let's get into it. So the first finished object I have to show you guys is actually what I'm wearing today. This is my neighborhood sweater by Erica Knight from her book Texture. I showed you guys this as a work in progress in one of my last videos, but now it is finished. It's this wonderful oversized sweater. It's knit flat and then seamed together, which it isn't a sweater style that I normally knit. Usually I like my seamless raglan or yoke sweater, but I absolutely love this sweater, and the seaming was actually not that bad. It adds a really nice structure to the sweater. It's very large, it's very cozy, and I love it. It is knit out of soft donegal tweed in the color foil, which I bought all the way back last year in September from West Coast Wools. So they sell this yarn on cones and you can purchase however much or however little that you want. This yarn is super soft and I love it. I have not blocked this yet. I have been too excited to wear it, so I've just been wearing it every day, to the point where I found one of my stitch markers on the inside that I still hadn't taken out. So that's how much I love this sweater. I purchased the amount of yarn that the pattern called for, and then I did my gauge swatch. So my stitch gauge was fine. It was my row gauge that was a little bit off. So once I started knitting the sweater, I was getting to the sleeves and I realized that I probably wasn't gonna have enough yarn. So I just happened to be back down in Vancouver and I stopped by West Coast Wools on the off chance that they might have some of this yarn in the same dye lot, and it turns out that they did. So I bought another 2 skeins, so I was able to finish the sweater. I actually only needed 1 more skein, so I've got 1 skein left over. I'm glad I was able to get the extra because I definitely needed it. Overall, it was a very, very fun knit. The only issue that I ran into was I made a mistake on my shoulders. So what I did is I knit the first shoulder and I did all the short rows. And then when I was measuring how long I needed to go for the other one, I measured all the way to the end of the short rows. So my next shoulder ended up way too long. So I kind of held it up and I was like, oh, I'm ready to sew it together. And it was completely crooked. And I was like, oh, maybe it's the way I knit it and it'll block out. And then I realized, no, there were 10 extra rows on one of the shoulders. So I ended up having to re-knit the shoulder, which I ended up re-knitting the wrong shoulder. So it ended up way too long, and then I realized that it was the long. Anyways, I had to reknit the shoulders on the front, but it all worked out. And yeah, this is my new favorite sweater. The next finished object I don't actually have with me. I posted when I cast them on my Instagram a couple months ago, and those were my kroy socks in turquoise stripes. And it was kind of an impulse buy. The pattern that I used is just vanilla socks with a short row heel, and I used my normal 72 stitches and 2.25 millimeter needles, which with kroy I find is a little bit thicker of a sock yarn. So I'm knitting another pair of socks out of kroy, and I've switched to 2.5 millimeter needle. So 2.25 is my go-to for socks, but with kroy, since it's thicker, I use a 2.5. So kroy comes in 50 gram balls. I have learned that when you're knitting socks for people with bigger feet, that might not be enough. So I came dangerously close to running out of yarn. I've never been that close playing yarn chicken before, but I actually had to steal some scrap yarn just to finish the toe of one of the socks. But I did get the socks finished and sent off to the recipient. If you're making socks out of kroy, just be mindful of how long you do your legs. So I started the cuff down, and I wasn't really paying attention on how long my cuff is. I was just doing my normal like 6 or 7 inches for the cuff. It's a good thing that I did the length I did because I had just enough yarn to finish. Those were my kroy socks. The last knitting fibre finish object I have to show you guys, I actually just finished last night. It's still a bit wet because it's blocking, but I'm very excited to show you guys some yarn that I spun. This was from a braid by Pineapple Yarn. I bought some stuff from her, I think it was last year. I bought a couple braids in some really fun colors. This is the second braid that I've spun up from that order. This is 100% Polworth in the color End of the Day. I spun it as a 3-ply, and I started it probably about a month or 2 ago. I spun up 2 bobbins, 2.5 bobbins actually. And so yesterday I just finished off the last bobbin and plied them together. I'm super happy at how it turned out. I think this is about 300 meters for 100 grams. So it's probably like a DK weight-ish. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was really fun to spin. I really like the colors. I did this similar to the last one that I did, which was like a fractal spin. So I divided the braid into 3, and then I split one of those braids in 2. The next one I split into 4, and the third one I split into 8. It's got some cool color changes. It's a lot more green than I thought it was gonna be. Like when I was spinning it, it didn't seem all that green, and then when I was plying it together, I was like, oh, this is really green. But I absolutely love it. Very soft and squishy. It's still a bit damp because it's still drying from blocking it out. But yeah, that is my other finished object I have to show you guys. All right, let's talk about works in progress. So the first 2 works in progress I have are very, very similar. So when I was buying yarn for the turquoise stripes kroy socks that I finished earlier this summer, I picked up a little bit more of the kroy from Michael's, and this is a sock. So I just finished this. I cast them on probably about a month ago, I think. So this is the kroy sock in the colorway woodsie. So normally I do a 72 stitch sock for myself, but because kroy is so thick for a sock yarn, I actually did 64 stitches, which when I cast this on and I started knitting the cuff, I was on an airplane and I was like, how is this sock going so fast? It's because it's 64 stitches and I was using a 2.5 millimeter needle. So I have finished 1 sock in the woodsie colorway. I don't know what it is with kroy, but I find myself playing yarn chicken a bit. So even though this sock is like my size, so smaller than the one I knit earlier this summer, I still was like getting down there with the sock yarn. So I think going forward, I am going to do contrast heels and toes when I use kroy. So this is sock number 1. I am going to cast on sock number 2 very soon. But the next work in progress I have, very similar. All I had left to do on this sock was Kitchener the toe. And I had some work training that I had to do. So there were videos that I had to watch. And I figured that doing Kitchener while watching those videos was going to be a little bit too much brain power. So I ended up casting on another pair of socks. So enter my next work in progress is another pair of kroy socks. So this is just a little cuff I have, and this is again kroy socks, but it is in the colorway tourmaline tourmaline stripes. So it's similar to the turquoise stripes, but it's like a purple, navy, and a light blue. So again, I'm doing 64 stitches on a 2.5mm needle. And so that is my training knitting, I guess you could call it. But for these ones, I did pick up some gray. So I think I'm going to do contrast heels and toes out of the gray, and then I could probably do a little bit of a longer cuff, and I won't be too worried about running out of yarn. Those are all my kroy socks. All right, so the next work in progress I have to show you guys, I was talking about this in a previous video, but I hadn't cast it on yet, but I am almost finished. This is the lewsky hood. It is from the book, ooh, there you go. It's from the book Moon and Turtle by Kiyomi and Sachiko Bergen. So I am almost finished this. So this is the hood. So I finished all of that. I still have to do the drawstring, and I also have to finish on the inside. There's a bit of a face mask. So I've only done about 4 inches, and I think it needs about 5 more inches. But it's this internal kind of, it's hard to show, but there's an internal kind of face mask part that comes from the bottom. So I've just got to finish that. But yeah, I cast this on sometime this summer. I can't remember when I cast it on, but it is almost done. And then I just have to block it out. The yarn I used is Santa Cruz by Juniper Moon, and it's in the color Smoked. That's this gray. And then this is Cardamom. And I got this from Beehive Yarns down in Vancouver. I put in the order, I think it was last year. I ordered some Brooklyn tweed as well as the Santa Cruz. Yeah, so I finally cast it on, and it's a fairly fast knit. It's a pretty easy knit too. And I think it's gonna be great for this winter in the north. So I'm very excited about that. Apparently I've just been very, very excited about casting stuff on. So I have a lot of projects here that I've cast on that I should probably finish some other stuff, but it's okay, I'm having fun. So the next work in progress I have to show you guys was very much an impulse cast on again. I cast this on probably about a month ago again. Apparently a month ago I was really into casting things on, but this was definitely an impulse cast on. I have a friend that knits a little bit, and she really wanted to knit a sweater. So I was like, okay, like I'll show you how to knit a sweater, because she tried to get me to knit her a sweater, and I knit sweaters for myself. I don't knit sweaters for my family. They get socks. So I said, hey, like I can show you how to knit a sweater, and we can kind of go through it. I'll walk you through it. And so we settled on The Weekender by Andrea Mowry. I was like, well, we have the pattern. So I bought the pattern, and I was like, hey, I have some yarn that I could use to knit this. So I cast on for The Weekender. So far I've only used 1 ball. So this is High Desert Worsted in Alder, and this is from Knit Picks. So I bought this last year, I think, or maybe it was earlier this year. I put in quite a large Knit Picks order, and I ordered about 14 50-gram balls of this, which I didn't realize that you could actually get 100-gram balls. And I didn't realize that until later. They're about the same price, so it all works out, but it would have been easier just to get the 100-gram balls, so that I didn't have to change skeins so often, but that's okay. But yeah, so I have done the hem. So it's got a split hem, you can kind of see there. So I've done the hem, and I've started knitting the body. And this one is knit inside out, so it's all the purl bumps that are supposed to be on the outside of it, but you actually knit it inside out so that you're knitting all the time instead of purling all the time. So that is the next project that I cast on. I definitely cast this one on last minute. I was trying to show my friend how to cast it on and do all that stuff, and I was like, hey, hold on a sec, like, let me just cast this on quickly. And then I just started knitting. So that's that's my next work in progress. And I'm always a fan of more sweaters because I live in the north, so you can never have too many sweaters. Okay, so the last finished object I have to show you guys is something I haven't worked on it in a little while, but it's something that I have cast on since my last episode. This is my mystery knit along from Jimmy Bean's Wool, and it is the Outlander mystery knit along. So one, it's a shawl. I don't knit shawls. Two, it's based on the show Outlander, which I've watched, but I'm not a huge fan, but I will watch it just for fun. If there's nothing else to watch, I thought it would be kind of fun to just do a mystery knit along, and we'll see how it turns out. I'm actually really enjoying the pattern so far. There's a little bit of lace, there's like a slip stitch pattern. The colors are absolutely gorgeous. So these are the 3 colors. And so I bought this from Jimmy Bean's Wool. So the yarn is Tosh Merino Light from Madeline Tosh. And the colorways are Fergus, Marcelly, and Germaine. I don't know which color is which. I don't remember. They're all these pretty purple colors. Well, that one's like a light with purple speckles. So I got the kit that Jimmy Bean's was selling when I was down there in, I think it was February that I was down there. I wanted to buy this, but they hadn't released it yet. So I waited and I got them to ship it to me. So like I said, I haven't worked on it in a little while. I'm back. My camera battery died and I had no charged batteries, so I just had to take a little moment, charge up my battery, and let's get back into it. I was talking about my Outlander mystery knit along. When I was down in Reno last time, I knew that they were going to have this mystery knit along starting, and you can get a kit with the yarn, and when I was down there they hadn't released the kit yet, so I ended up putting in an order and ordering the yarn, and it came with a nice little shawl pin and it included the pattern. So I've been working on that. I haven't worked on it in a little while, but that's something that I started since my last video. That is all the knitting and fiber finished objects and works in progress that I have to show you guys. But I have been getting back into something that I was into a couple years ago before I moved to Whitehorse, and that is leatherwork. So I've been getting back into it. I was recently in Vancouver on a layover and I put in and I did some leather shopping. I'm just waiting for it to ship to my house. But in the meantime, I've had a little bit of leather kind of sitting around, and I was really inspired to start leather working again. So a couple of years ago, I took a tote making class with some friends. I was in my local yarn store, Itsy Bitsy Yarn Store, and I had my tote bag with me, and the owner, she complimented me on the bag and asked me where I got it, and when I told her that I'd made it, she was really interested in that, and so it kind of inspired me to start leatherworking again. So I've made a couple things recently, and I just wanted to show you guys because it's knitting adjacent. So I had some leather that I bought a couple years ago from Lonsdale Leather down in Vancouver. They have a lot of amazing leathers. The first thing that I made recently is this. It is a DPN holder. This is cow leather, but it's printed to look like alligator or crocodile. I love DPN holders because I knit a lot of socks. My favorite kind of sock needle is a Haya Sharp at a 2.25 millimeter size. They're very sharp, and I have stabbed myself several times when I've been packing my stuff or reaching into a bag, and I've actually jammed a DPN into the palm of my hand, like a good 1/4 of an inch. It hurts. So I wanted to create something to protect my needles, to protect my project as well. So I decided to make this DPN holder. It's just got these little, they're not really snaps, but they're just these little pieces that hold it together. So there's 2 on there. So how this works is I usually use it for socks. So I've got all 4 needles into my project. I make sure that the needles are all lined up. And then all you do is you put your project into the DPN holder and close these up. So the project, however long it is, it just, it goes in between the two snaps, protects the ends of the needles. It holds all your work together, and it stops your hand from getting stabbed. So that's one thing that I have made. So it's all hand stitched. So that's the first finished object I have from leather. The next thing that I made is I don't know where I got the idea from, but I kind of wanted like a little yarn bowl to hold my yarn. So I made this simple little box. So you can see the stitching is on the outside there. But it is a little box that fits a yarn cake. It's just a little yarn bowl, a little stylish one. I made some in a brown leather, but I gave those away as gifts. This is a turquoise leather. It's covered in a white wax. So eventually the wax is gonna wear off and it's gonna be this darker turquoise once the wax kind of starts to wear off, so it gets a really nice patina on it. So that's my little leather yarn bowl that I made. And then yesterday I was doing my spinning and I have this little basket that I got from IKEA, but it's got a lot of holes in it. And I like it, but I wanted something to hold fiber while I'm spinning. So my current fiber project or bobbins, whatever. And I like to have it next to my spinning wheel. And I had some more leather that I recently ordered. And so I wanted some sort of basket. So I basically took the yarn bowl and I made a larger version of it. So this is my basket. There's no handles on it. I just wanted something simple just to sit beside my spinning wheel. Again, I did this stitching on the outside. So this is my little leather basket. It's all hand stitched, hand punched. Actually, it doesn't take too long to make, but it's pretty fun. I'm getting into it. I don't have it here with me right now, but I also made another tote bag out of some bison leather. So yeah, I'm just kind of having fun making different things out of leather, making useful things that I can use with my knitting. I also created a new Instagram account for all my leather stuff. That is called Northward Leather. So that is all I have for you guys for my knitting and leatherwork and all of that. If you're not following me on Instagram, you can follow me at Northward Knitter, or my new account, Northward Leather. I also have a website, northwardknitter.com, where I put all of my show notes. I also put project notes and different things. Don't forget to subscribe. You can also turn on the notification bell because I don't post videos that often because I'm so busy. So if you hit the notification bell, then you'll be notified the next time I post a video. As far as life stuff, like I said, this year has been really busy for me. So I am a geophysicist in mineral exploration. So that means I am away for weeks at a time, usually in a remote camp. And this year has been nuts. I was trying to take more time for me and less time for work, but we have been busier than ever. So in my last video, I had just gotten back from Idaho and Nevada, and I was getting ready to go to the Northwest Territories. So I ended up spending almost 3 months in Northwest Territories. So I did 3 different rotations. A rotation is just, I do a couple weeks on, a week or 2 off. So I did 3-week rotation, 3.5-week rotation, and then a 4-week rotation. So it was better part of 3 months I was gone. In between those stints, I was back home. After that 3 months, then I was down in BC visiting family. So I was there for about 2 weeks. I came back home to the Yukon and I did a fun little canoe trip with some friends down the McQuestion River, and that's here in the Yukon. It's north of Whitehorse. So it was a 4-day canoe trip. I hadn't been in a canoe since I was a kid, and I did lake canoeing. So this was all very new to me, but it was a lot of fun. So we did 4 days on the river and we just camped out in different places next to the river. It was super fun. We saw lots of moose, beaver, we saw some swans, and then on our way back there was some forest fires happening, so the highway was closed, so we ended up spending an extra 2 nights up there. trying to get back to Whitehorse, and it ended up being 2 extra days, but it was a lot of fun. After that, I was on Baffin Island for 3 weeks for work. Baffin Island is the largest island in Canada, and it's in the Arctic. It's absolutely gorgeous up there. I did 3 weeks of working the night shift, which normally we don't do, but up there it was still 24 hours of daylight, so we were able to work through the night while the sun was still up. Just as we were leaving, the sun just started to dip close to the horizon, but it was still light enough that we were able to work. And then I came back, and then it was off to northern BC. I did 3 weeks there in the mountains. We were in this really nice valley up in the alpine above the trees. It was amazing. That's kind of my life. It's a lot of work. And then when I'm back, I actually have a bit of free time. Next, I am off to the States again. So I'm going back down to Nevada and doing a little bit of work there. And then I am going to California for some more work. So I'm probably going to be gone for 5 weeks this time. It's a little bit longer, but then I will be back in Canada, and I'm hopefully taking some extra time off once I get back. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!